Um, uh, Now can you hear me? I hope now you can hear me. Anybody hear me? Oh, I got it. I know what happened. I'm very sorry. Excuse me, apologies and everything. What happened was she chewed the microphone cable. No, 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 sorry. Um, please. Uh, no, 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 no. Yeah, exactly. That's what happens when I start talking about 5G. Okay, so that was a very, very quick setup of OBS. So what I was talking about. So when you have a giant capacitor dumping all that amount of charge into the human body in order to save a human, save the person, reset the heart, the thing that happens is anything connected to, anything connected to uh, tissue would see a giant spike. So Microsemi and Microchip now actually sell ESD protection for implants, and they have been doing that for a while. And they're usually very small and very robust. So here you go. Kitty. Apologies for the sound issue. I really don't know what happened. I think it was Discord. No idea. Anyway, okay, so we know, and one more thing about medical electronics, they're not allowed to fail even on a processor lockup sort of situation. So devices with processor lockups in medicals have to have watchdogs. And one of the watchdogs that we used in one of the products had a massive current draw of 200 nanoamps in sleep mode. So yeah, low power is very important when you have 3 amp hours of battery capacity at 3 point something volts with entire ohms of internal resistance. Right. So, oh, by the way, not an advertisement or anything, but it was on the list. Well, actually Xiaomi, made this thing. It's pretty stupid. I used to have the Ouya Bit set, but I gave it away when I got the GPU because the GPU I have came with the, a set of knockoff Xiaomi Wias. And I tried this out, and it's pretty cool actually for working on laptops and stuff like that. But the bits are no longer Wia, so that's a bit disappointing. Right. How'd you guys get started into electronics or into IT and technical stuff and stuff like that? I'm actually curious about my audience here a bit. Anybody in the chat? Nobody? You don't want to talk to me? You thought Robot Wars was the coolest? Poor Grant Mahar is dead. Yeah, Robot Wars was the coolest. Your father learned you in this workshop. Oh, awesome. I always wish I had a father. Okay, it was a joke, I'm sorry. Disassembling big toys and stuff. Wow. Disassembling toys, yeah, that was a thing that I also did. When I used to get toys like radio control cars, I would just take them apart and I'd not play with them. And Sendung mit der Maus, what does that mean? Mythbusters, yeah, Mythbusters. Rep server raid, yeah, basically something like that. So you took apart your first remote control card, couldn't put it back together for years, and eventually added the huge umbilical cord and the CD drive with blades attached. You remind me of the stabby Roomba things. Oh Jesus, ended up in the hospital. Take care of yourselves, guys. Like, don't kill yourself. Yeah, I got started in electronics by taking stuff apart because that's all we could do, especially in an Eastern European country where bananas were prohibitively expensive when I was a kid. Oh, I was not that badly off, but bananas were very expensive, and after the fall of communism, everything was shit here. Excuse my French, I'm sorry. I think YouTube will demonetize me for that. But amongst the first things that I remember doing were soldering kits like these, which my grandma used to buy me all the time. And these I actually taught my girlfriend how to solder, and she did a pretty good job. But I remember having all the literally all the models that they had available, and they were all made by a Romanian company. I think they still make them, and they look like absolute rubbish. So they were made by some dude in a garage, so no tinned traces, no nothing. This one is the fancy kind because it's got a solder mask, look at that. But it's solder mask, which is basically green nail polish painted on a blank FR4 with copper traces. Oh, Velman, yeah, we used to have those as well around here. That's a very nice present to give somebody for Christmas, soldering kit. I got my first soldering station when I was around 14 or 15. No, earlier than that, 12 or 13. And it was one of those, it looked like an old transformer-based soldering iron, but it wasn't transformer-based, it was straight off the mains. And it had a half-wave rectifier in series with the heater element usually, and it had a trigger which bypassed that rectifier to give you an extra oomph when you were desoldering something particularly hard, you know? But it was terrible. And then I found increasingly good quality stuff. I had very good Weller tools at the institute where I worked for a while, at the Nuclear Physics and Research Institute. And bottom line is I never built an RC car. Magnetron, Weller Magnetron, wow, nice. The Curie point temperature setters, excellent. And finally, after a very, very long time, I found this gorgeous thing that I've been congratulating for a while now. Thank God I use lead-free solder now, because Ravioli loves the paste just as much as I do. Besto, sorry. She's the special kid of the family. So yeah, I got into that's what I also wanted to do, remote control cars and sailboats and stuff like that. I actually had a very nice model sailboat. Yeah, same thanks to reps. Yeah, same, exactly. Hi, Rolf. Um, so I started soldering kits, and then I started soldering schematics off of the internet, and that's basically how I got into university for electrical engineering. And now I'm doing a master's thesis because, of course, I am. Um, right. Let me show you. So one thing that was very interesting when Rory SMP discussed about why do we abandon projects. I don't know if he mentioned what is that T3A bandwagon. Yeah, okay. JBC knockoffs. I heard they're very good. I think that one of the reason we abandon projects, and this is one of my uh, former projects, actually, it works very well. It's another Jim Williams project in the same spirit as this one, which you've seen. This is his high voltage power supply based on the LT1534, and this is actually the second version. And I realized that I redid it with lots of clearance for the high voltage bits and stuff like that, and I did such a good job of revisiting this circuit that the first version worked better than the second one. So I think one of the reasons why we abandoned projects, because this is just why I ditched this one completely, is that I could never get it working as well as I could never get it working as well as I could get it. I got it the first time, so I was just very lucky. My thesis, apologies. So my thesis will be a DIY, actually not DIY anymore, no, DIY, a multi-slope converter. Um, lathes made in Soviet countries. Yes, you do spy Coilcraft. I abused their sample service at every job I had, and I have like a sizable box full of Coilcraft components. Um, Also, let me show you just this quick side note. These are, I can talk about it now because it's been a while, so I don't know if you can see what it says. It says TPS 62816, and I remember somebody suggested that they'd watch videos about evaluation board demos. So, like this thing I did a while back with the transimpedance amplifier, the ADA40 530. When I used to work for a company in the automotive industry, we had to design a power supply capable of supplying core voltage to a image processing ASIC. And there's only one company who does true image processing ASICs for automotives, and yeah, they do give them away unconditionally. So if you need samples for magnetics, Coilcraft is the best. And there's an Italian guy who deals with Europe, and he hands out free student accounts like this. So there's one company who does image processing ASICs for ADAS, Advanced Driver Assistance, and that company is Mobileye. And at the time when I designed the power supply for that core voltage, there was really only one regulator on the market which fit the price to performance criteria that the customer was asking, and was this thing. It's a TPS 62816. This is a single phase buck converter made by TI, and these are actually engineering samples because they're marked XPS. So I don't know if you can see, I'm pretty sure you won't see the sample, but these are 6 amp buck converters, and that small of a package. And they come in this very, very interesting gel. I have never seen these until this point, but this is actually a gel-like substance, and it's ESD, and you just yank one off and place it on your evaluation board. And this is a gel. It's actually quite rigid. I'm gonna rip a bit off so you can see it. So yeah, it's kind of chip. Hopefully it won't be self-aware very soon. And yeah, the power supply requirements for that ASIC were actually what started me on this path of designing a dynamic load. And then I stumbled across Jim's application note, but I ran out of time, blah blah blah. And the requirements were the device could pull a pulse of current from the core voltage. Yeah, they are used for bare dies. So the device could pull current pulse from the core voltage from 2 to 7 amps at a slew rate of about 8 or 10 amps per microsecond. So very, very nasty fast rise time. But the worst thing was that the over and undershoot on the voltage rail on the core voltage couldn't exceed 60 millivolts peak to peak, which is absolutely stupid. It's nigh on impossible. So the only thing that this couldn't do it, like this with loads of filtering and very fine tuning of the feedback loop, couldn't really do it, but it was good enough. There is a specific TI part which actually is designed for the Mobileye iQ4 chip, which I'm talking about, and it actually says on TI's website, designed for the Mobileye iQ4 mid or high. So that's a 4-phase buck converter, and it's capable of up to 10 or 12 amps depending on the variant that you get it. So yeah, automotive engineering, saving a hundredth part of a cent makes financial sense entirely when you're talking about millions of units sold per year. Oh, by the way, I finally managed to cram all of those sub-miniature tubes in one spot. A good friend of mine said he's gonna send me some guitar, what do you call it? The effects loops for guitar amplifiers based on these things. He had some PCBs, and I might try putting some together. I actually do play guitar. I think I mentioned that in a video. I do play guitar, and I started taking lessons again after a while, and I'm getting better. Okay, lathes made in Romania, actually made in Soviet countries. So Romania, because we had a dictator, we had planned economy, and that meant that if Ceausescu decided to up to what frequency are the small tubes? They're actually spec'd only for DC, so very low frequency, if I recall correctly, under 100 kilohertz, something like that. So if Ceausescu decided that we're gonna have a big screw off, why is the video form factor square? I have no idea. Let me just wait. It's going to be cropped, but you're not going to see any good resolution anyway on live stream. So if Ceausescu decided that we were going to have a giant whatchamacallit channel from the Danube to the Black Sea, they were going to just throw political prisoners at it until it was done. If Ceausescu decided that we were going to have 10,000 lathes produced in a specific year, we are going to have 10,000 lathes, goddammit. Okay, thank you, and I'm full of cuts and bruises. And those 10,000 lathes had to be built somehow. Well, firstly, when they started making lathes in Romania, they ripped off the Monarchs, the 16 CY basically, was turned by an engineer called Gheorghe Biber into a metric version, but he kept the change gear ratios the same. Everything else was exactly the same. The headstock looked the same, the tailstock looked the same, the bed was the same, had the same ribbing of the bed, the lead screw was imperial pitch, the thread cutting screw was imperial pitch, everything was imperial, and it was exactly the same as the metric. But this guy redid the math on all the gears in order to help it cut almost any gear, almost any pitch without changing change gears. So it was one of the very few lathes that could switch between metric and imperial without very complex changes of change gears in the back. And that was known as the Yossi Vrenget's lathe, or the normal lathe. So that was one of the first ones. Then they started, based on the stolen, bought, whatever, monarchs that they reverse engineered, they started improving the lathes, and they started making them a lot more square, and that's when you get into the SN series of lathes. So we had up from 250 millimeter swing up to I think the biggest SN was 630 millimeter swing by 3.5 meters between centers. Yes, they were actually very good, but the beds were extremely overcast. They were very, very heavy. They were about twice as heavy as equivalent Western lathes for the same envelope of machine, because we didn't have as fine of a metallurgical industry, but they were very robust and they could handle crashes and everything. The only thing is that the operators were so poorly trained and so alcoholic that they were usually never lubed up properly. They were never so it's very hard to find one in a good condition. And so the biggest one you can get was about 630 millimeters across the swing across the bed by 3.5 meters. It was called the SNA 630 by 3500. Then you got into SPA, so parallel lathes. And those were from 800 millimeter to I think 2 meter swings. And yeah, then you had the carousels and stuff like that. But Romanians, so the lathes were ripped off from Americans, and the milling machines that we have were basically entirely ripped off of, first of all, the decals, the FP1, FP2, and then the second thing they ripped off, yeah, exactly, you could do with a very small lathe. The second generation of mills was actually ripped off of the Schaublins. So most of the Romanian, probably a bit better than the Bulgarian ones. Most of the Romanian milling machines were actually extremely robust. So the dovetails on the machines, so a Schaublin clone made in Romania weighs twice as much as a Schaublin. So the 13 that Tony has, this old Tony, is equivalent to the FUS 22. FUS means Freză Universală de Sculărie, which means Universal Tool Room Mill, and 22 means the trowels. It was 220 millimeters on all axes. And the Schaublin 13 weighs 400 and something kilos. The FUS 22 weighs 980 or something like that. So the gibs are twice as big, but that doesn't mean the machine is more precise, just a lot more rigid. You could take much bigger cuts without ruining the machine. Oh, and they also ditched the smart variable speed drive that the Schaublin had in favor of change gears. And the bigger machines were ripped off of the Schaublin 53, but without that brilliant spin-a-thingy head. Right, Romanian, okay, so if you want to get Romanian machine tools, make sure you don't get them from Romania, because if they're from here, they're probably bust. They're all worn to hell and back, and they've worked a very, very hard life. you can't really even find them anymore because they've all been scrapped for iron. We're in a pretty bad recession right now, and the few ones that you can find for sale on the equivalent of Craigslist here they're not even worth their scrap price in iron. So okay, have I, Jesus Christ, sorry, have I showed you this? So this comes from my very good friend Stan. I spoke about him, and you can see this is a Pripyat Geiger counter. And this is uranium glass. Uranium glass is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, exactly, uranium glass. This is a shot glass that he sent me for my birthday, I think. And I've been keeping it on my desk around here, and it's not dangerous at all. So if I hold the Geiger counter from here, it will go back to background radiation. But it's just so pretty, and I've been meaning to get a UV LED and make a small... Hi Stan! Thanks for joining. I've been meaning to make a display case for it with a new VLED to just show it in its beautiful color. I don't know, I've never tried radioactive vodka, and since about almost a year and a half ago I haven't drank alcohol at all, so yeah. Duh, comrade. Kamarad. That's supposed to be the pronunciation in Russian. Right. All right. Decide on a topic. We still have 15 minutes, and this is going actually great. I'm really enjoying this. We should do this again. But we still have 15 minutes of free time, so first topic suggested, we can treat it. In the meantime, I shall delight you with this beautiful Soviet rectifier valve. This is the filament and the cathode, which is Ed and Eddie. And I always had very good English tutors, and I always watched American TV shows, but my accent isn't really American. It might be now, but I usually have a very nondescript accent. Yes, it is awesome. This is a, I think, 1000 volt. Okay, so you can see it here. I think it's a 32 kilovolt diode or something like that. Microwave equipment to show. You can look at my previous video about the one with the clickbait title entitled "I found Soviet missile parts at the flea market." I actually have a magnetron from the Doppler radar from a S-75 Dvina surface-to-air missile. And I have a traveling wave tube, and I have some tunnel diodes and stuff like that. Let me take a look in here. See if I can find any microwave equipment. Probably, maybe for lucky, a gun diode, but I don't think so. Oh, look, uranium beads as well. Oh, this is another one of the flea market finds. This is a 3C87. It's a math coprocessor, I think, from back in the day. Nixie. This is the mishmash bag of things here. I can't even find that. Oh, look, I do have it. This is not a gun diode. This is a Schottky, I think. This is for a. It's basically traveling wave tube was incredible. Thank you very much. That was a very rare find. This is I think a Schottky detector diode for broadband AM detection, stuff like that. And these are, I think I showed you these, but they're worth mentioning again. You like mishmash? So do I. I am a very massive fan of mishmash. These are the beautiful electrometer tubes that I showed a couple of videos ago. These are XC5886 pentodes. Any VFD displays in vacuum tube form factor? Yes, there are, but I don't have any to hand. I don't actually have any. They're extremely expensive. I do have a small VFD just lying around. If you give me 30 seconds, I'll find it. 3 seconds. Oh, here it is. So this is 15 femtoamps bias current or something like that. This is out of a calculator because I think you've all noticed that I have a massive problem with acquiring far too many calculators, and this is where I keep kind of urgently needed things like I sometimes need the small fan for blowing smoke out of my face when I solder things. Yeah, div boards. Holy crap, thank you! That's unbelievable. That's more than I made from analytics since I've had the YouTube channel. Thank you! Foodie food. Oh, I love food. Thank you. For a few snacks. I will most certainly use that money for snacks. Thank you. Oh, I think these are Soviet RF relays. They're latching and they are very, very, very heavy. Like, these are weighty. These are some voltage references out of a Wiltron hydrostatic ways, fully automatic, and HUD dials to control the speed of all three axes. Yes, hydrostatic ways are very interesting. They rely on the film pressure of the oil to maintain a precise gliding surface, but they're very complex. Romanian-made surface grinder had hydrostatic spindles. So they had I think 200 bar hydraulic pump which pumped oil inside a hydrostatic bearing, and they got very good runout out of a comparatively small machine, but it was very susceptible to the oil quality. So if you had bad oil quality, that machine was toast, and that's why most of them are dead. Mishmash. Let me find you some more mishmash. Oh, right. Piece of silicon wafer. Another small vacuum tube. Oh, RF. Somebody asked of Toyota. I have never heard of Toyota. Japanese. Somebody asked for microwave equipment. This is a very pretty looking. I don't think you can read that. KT 93 for something. It's a MOSFET for RF switch, for RF amplification, and I like the fact that it was packed like this, and if I try to bend these out, I'm sure they're gonna just crack. Oh, I think I mentioned this, but it bears repeating. This Roadrunner wire, it's just excellent. You can strip it with the soldering iron and you can do very fast bodges. This is actually how I bodged the Jim Williams pulsar. What have I got around here? Let me see. I have a cat. I don't know. Ask me something. This is one of the LM399s that I've had for a while. I just took it off the power supply because I needed a power supply. This will be one of the first subjects that I test when I shall get the 3458A. I do not do any code for the moment. Very little. I know the basics, but I'm not very good at programming. I will have to do a lot of code, and I love the idea of coding, but I haven't really gotten into it. I'm more of a hardware guy. I will need to do that for my master's thesis. I'll have to learn some FPGA programming and some How did that come about? Well, I'm doing a metrology ADC, and I'm gonna need a way to verify its performance, right? So, hopefully I'll get it by the end of the year. So I was telling you about the bodge. It's that bodge over there. Yeah, Xilinx FPGAs. That's what I'm gonna try and use. I have one of those Alcatree AU development boards. I actually would be fine with something like the Solterra Max, but yeah. Well, my the plan for my ADC is to be a bit better than the one in the Keithley 2000. Thank you. You got very good results with yours as well. I hope to get better results with some custom resistor networks. The cat was starting to chew on the brand new brass sponge. I just changed this out of oh, Napomar. Yeah, they were made in Romania. Napomar. I had the Napomar. I had a cylinder grinder Napomar, and they're very, very, very nice. They're very compact compared to the TOS machines, for example, the Czechoslovakian ones. And they had the hydrostatic spindle I told you about. Yeah. Yeah, I know you use the Raspberry Pi Pico. The programmable I/O is very, very good, but I think I'll need to control more switches than that thing is capable of controlling. So I actually have. Oops, apologies. I actually use. Wait. Let me just mishmash time. Okay. For PCBs, I usually go for JLC. So this is version 2 of the Jim Williams Load Slammer. This is the Cosmic Pi that Rep sent me ages ago. Yeah, good luck finding parts for that one. This is my reflow plate. I'll put the documentation for this thing on GitHub. This is actually extremely useful. So I managed to get it at around 7 ohms of resistance, and I just power it up and put the thing on the. For small PCBs, it's excellent. Heat it up nicely. I think you can see the moire pattern. I will link it in the description of the channel. I can heat this thing up, put a thermocouple somewhere and measure the temperature, make sure I'm not going too hot, and then I can just help the thing reflow with my hot air gun, which is always within reach. Can you hear me now? I think it's gone to mono, but it should work. Let me just redo that. I think you should hear me now. Okay. Now? Okay, it's gone. Yeah. I know what I have to do now. Yeah. Okay, it should be back on both channels now. Okay, let me find some more mishmash, because I have drawers full of mishmash right here. Oh, yeah, I have these things here. These are all the collection of... So, by the way, forgot to finish. TMP117 temperature sensor, LiPo battery should last for a while. Now I'm actually doing a collaboration with somebody on with Mark. I don't know if he's here, but we're doing a LoRa sensor, temperature sensor, with TMP 117. This I'll link the GitHub and the repository for this thing. It's very, very simple. I'll link it in my channel description. These are all weird displays. So these are all the tiny CRTs I scavenged from video cameras that I got at the flea market, and now I have enough for a 1 digit per tube CRT clock. I just need to get for Arduinos, and yeah. So these are these are the cool in-plane displays that I showed in a previous video. These are just projection. How good could it be to heat up an iron? Well, people used to do reflow on iron, on clothes irons all the time. It's very, very common. So yeah, so these are a bit more recent PCBs. This is my shimmy it till it fits method. I keep them handy because, you know, sometimes I fidget with something and I get an idea. But I have decreasingly less and less time to fidget around with things. Um, how do people? I know it's only on the left channel, but it just doesn't seem to. I think the camera can't take it both filming and recording audio. So let me just see if I can make it mono. I think it should be mono now. Yeah. Okay. How do you know where the people at the flea markets could be finding all this stuff? The variety of interesting stuff is especially impressive every time you show something off. Well, I have only two sources at the flea market. There's two guys, um, Sandu and Sorin. And I don't know where they get them from. I'm pretty sure they're getting them from across the border, Moldova or somewhere. Um, you can still hear me, right? And they're from liquidation sales and stuff like that, trash heaps. Oh, and speaking of abusing sample programs, um, and speaking of my multi-slope, these should be the T-Muxes. No, somewhere around here I have the T-Muxes that I'm gonna use for my multi-slope ADC. So I have a few favorite companies, you can tell by now. I really love Analog Devices and Linear Technologies, and Jim Williams was a genius. And yeah, um, waiting for a package from Taiwan. Nothing yet from Postal Ninja. No, I can't sample T-Muxes. TI doesn't give out free samples. I actually bought them from Mauser, and funny thing, before I decided to use the Alkit tree for my multi-slope ADC, I actually settled. No, the Republic of Moldova. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Um, so I decided on a programmable logic, um, one of those CPLDs, complex programmable logic devices. Um, from Altera, I think it was a Cool Runner. I can't remember exactly anything. Something very small. And Altium Designer had it in the manufacturer part search, and then I started looking for them on the internet, and DigiKey didn't have them. Farnell didn't have them. TME didn't have them. Nowhere had them. There were 3 left on Mauser, and I bought all three of them on impulse, and just they arrived a couple of days later. And in the meantime, I realized, oh, I have the giant alky board. I should just use that. And yeah. Um, One more thing I could share quickly because I'm going to have to stop soon because I have to wake tomorrow at 5 o'clock to meet my hours at work and go to the masters and etc. etc. Um, if you can get double-sided copper-clad board like this, and if you can also get ultra perm, these are actually a very good way of making enclosures because you can just solder them together with a beefy iron. And I have made, sorry about the noises, I have made enclosures out of copper clad like this, and they have always been extremely satisfying to build. And especially if you have a PCB guillotine accessible. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing before I go, because although it's been a pleasure, I will have to at some point leave for the night, and we'll do this again next week with some extra topics because I really enjoy doing this. This is actually I don't know if he's watching or not. Maybe. Um, this is a one of the more complex per passive infrared combined with acoustic sensors I've seen. Just look at the size on these transducers. And this thing was reported as faulty. And why was it faulty? Because the tamper switch is actually broken. So, yeah, I can fix this, but it's already been replaced. So, guys, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm not sure how many people are watching. 11. Oh wow, that's a lot of people. More people than I imagined. Copper Clang, super fun. Saturday or Friday evening. Okay, I'll do it on Friday evenings. Um, I'll do it on Friday evenings at about the same time, if that's okay. Yes, they were very common among SAM guys. I've seen entire RF spectrum analyzers built in copper clad. So, thank you very, 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 very much for joining me. Thank you, Foodie Food, for the tip. I shall go get myself some snacks, and I shall think of you and your generous donation. Um, and I wish you all a exceedingly good week. I wish you all the best of luck and stay happy, healthy, and safe. And take care. And next week maybe we can get some more cat meows. Thank you very much. Have a great week. Bye, guys. Oh, and sorry about the sound issues. I don't know what was going on. I'll just stick to OSB and using my proper microphone. Bye. Cheers. Take care.